Today your assignment is going to be to read over some case studies and identify which organelle you feel like is not functioning correctly in that patient. Just to kind of give you an idea of what you're looking for, I put this resource on Canvas. It's an article and it talks about different diseases of the cell organelles. The first one in this article is called Tay-Sachs. Tay-Sachs is a disease in which the lysosomal enzymes are deficient. And now we know from our previous lecture that lysosomes are in charge of breaking things down. So in this case, you would identify that the lysosomes would be deficient or not working correctly, and you would tell me you know that because lysosomes are in charge of breaking down things. Now we know lysosomes work better when they don't have much oxygen or in high pHs. Now peroxisomes, on the other hand, they're very similar, but they have to work when there is oxygen. So in this case, adrenal leukodystrophy it affects the peroxisomes because it's in an area that has to have high oxygen. So it's kind of the same thing. It's not breaking down. The enzymes aren't working correctly in the peroxisomes. So there's a buildup of this fatty acids, and it surrounds the nerves. So after reading through this, if you realize that something is not being broken down, you know it's either going to be the peroxisomes or lysosomes, and then you can identify which one if it has high oxygen or low oxygen. Another disease is with the Golgi Apparatus. Now in this instance, we know that the Golgi Apparatus is there to package the the proteins and things like that. And it's not just proteins, but they also sort and package different other macromolecules. In this case, they're not being sorted correctly, and they're not going to where they need to go, and it causes a developmental problem. And then the last one discussed here is with a problem with the ribosomes. And we know that ribosomes have to produce proteins from the amino acids in your body. In this instance, if the proteins aren't being produced like they should, it's going to result in many different genetic abnormalities. Just because proteins are so important in your body, this would cause a multitude of effects. So I gave you these just to kind of realize this is what you're trying to do with the case studies. And just kind of giving you an idea how you're going to identify what organelle is being affected. You need to think about what the problem is and then what organelle actually does that. So when we go back, the case studies, you have 5 case studies. And for each one, you need to identify the organelle that is not functioning properly. You do not need to identify the disease. I don't expect you to be to know the diseases that well, so just identify the organelle that does not function properly, and then give me the evidence. So if it's a lysosomal disorder, you're going to tell me the exact what those lysosomes aren't breaking down. If it's a ribosomal disorder, you know that it's the proteins that aren't being formed. So you're just going to read through. Now, like I said, really pay attention to the boldface words and maybe things that are underlined, because this is going to give you some clues on the different organelle that is not functioning correctly. So you have 5 different case studies. Some of them have images on to kind of help you out and understand what's not working correctly. You can do this in a Google Doc. You can even just make a chart and show here's the organelle and here's the reasoning. Just make sure you identify which case study you're talking about.